Today, we're going to talk about a special event. It's a fishing tournament, but it's way more than that. It can make you a lot of money, but it also does something very special. We're going to talk about two different species of fish. These aren't just any fish. They've been around Flathead Lake and in that lake longer than any human being has walked in that area. They were a source of inspiration for Native people and a source of food. They kept those folks alive. They were honored by Native Americans. And much later, honored by a lot of fishermen who just flat loved to catch these fish. They're special. They're beautiful. But the numbers of these fish in Flathead Lake began to drop over the years to shockingly low levels. That had to do with a non-native fish called a lake trout. A lot of folks in the area call it a mack or a mackinaw. Those fish are big and they have a huge appetite, and they were literally wiping out this population of fish. I'm talking about bull trout and West Slope Cutthroat Trout. Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes decided to do something about this. They set out to save these two species of fish, the bull trout and the cutthroat trout. And they did it in a unique manner. They started this event. It's way more, as I said, than a fishing tournament. It's an event. It's very unique in that, one, and this ought to get you, if anything, it's probably the richest fishing tournament you will ever get in your life. Two, well, it's just a blast. It's unlike any other fishing tournament you've ever been in. We're going to talk all about it. We're going to tell you how you can get involved and how you can make a bunch of money. Do not go away. I'm going to tell you all about it next.
The Montana Outdoor Podcast is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, home of Boss Snowplows and Accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go to rmtte.com and see everything they have waiting for you online, or just come by 5680 Expressway in Missoula, and by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, delivering the highest quality lumber, paneling, flooring, and reclaimed wood products anywhere in North America. Let them guide you through the woods at their showroom in Missoula on Highway 93 South or at superior-hardwoods.com.
Real quick, I want to mention a few groups that are with us, one of which is doing some very dangerous and heavy lifting right now, and that is our active military members. As I understand it, some of you out there are out at sea but are still able to get this podcast, and many others are at bases all over the place around the world. And we all know what you're up to. We're seeing it on the news, and we're praying for you. And we just want you to know, thank you. Special folks. You're loved. You're missed. Be safe out there. Also want to give a big thank you to our veterans all across Montana and, well, anywhere you're listening or watching. Thank you for your service. Means a great deal to all of us. And for all the rest of you out there that are watching, hey, glad you're here. Now, real quick, I just wanted to let you know, if you would please like, share, and subscribe this podcast. Helps us out a ton. Also, when you subscribe, you get that little notification that says, hey, new podcast is available. It's kind of nice. So if you would please do those things, subscribe, like, and share. We'd love it. You know, gang, I was telling you before in our last podcast that this one here would be coming up. And man, I'm so looking forward to it. Talking about Spring Mack Days. And one of the contestants, you may recognize this guy and remember him from a while back. He came on and talked about Mack Days. And we've got him on again. Riker Bear, there he is popping up on your screen right now. Riker, welcome to the Montana Outdoor Podcast again. Good to have you back, buddy.
Good to be back. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, here it is, Spring Mack Days. We were talking about your experience now. Last time was that the first time you'd been on Mack Days, or you had been on it one time before? You were fairly new to it, wasn't it?
I think it was my either second or third. I think my first one was the last Spring Mack Days, so a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm. And you're back, so obviously you had a good enough time. You wanted to do it again. And you, throughout the time after we had talked last year, you were sending me pictures, and these things were awesome. And as we talk along, folks, you'll see I'm just going to kind of sprinkle some of those pictures from last year in throughout, so you'll see some of those. But you landed some pretty damn big fish, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've finally figured it out as far as the big ones.
Yeah. Now, of course, one of the strategies there is a lot of the guys and gals that have been doing this a long time will say, hey, you should probably zero in on those small ones because you want to just get them pulled up in the boat and go. Now, you still like going after the big guys, or have you kind of changed your strategy a little bit?
I'll say that we've changed a little bit. I mean, there's definitely more money when you figure out the smaller fish.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say no to money, but at the end of the day, I just love catching big fish.
Yeah.
It brings a smile to my face every time.
Well, you know, and there's lots of different motivations for getting involved in Mack Days. Like you say, money, of course, doesn't hurt. This can be, for a lot of fishermen, one of the richest fishing tournaments they'll ever be in. But on the other side, you know, you're spending a lot of time, or you can spend a lot of time out there on Flathead Lake. And, you know, you got to have a little fun too. You got to go after what you like. I get it. So let's talk a bit about, you know, some of the basics of what you've done, what you're going to do for this Spring Mack Days. Now, first of all, for folks that may have missed the last time you were on, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, all that stuff, and then we'll get into seeing if I can pick your brain and get some good ideas for other folks that maybe want to give Mack Days a try.
Of course. Yeah, no, I live here in Helena, Montana, the capital. Mm-hmm. I grew up just south of here in a small town called Townsend. Spent most of my days chasing walleye up and down the headwaters of the Missouri there. After graduating from walleye fishing, I really started focusing on bigger fish, I guess you could say. The Laker fishing really took off for me probably 4 years ago. And that started on Fort Peck Lake. We listened to a few podcasts and saw a few videos and talked to a couple of the guys that really focus on the fish up there. And once we figured them out there, we started hearing about Mack Days. We knew about it, but we really started to decide let's go try it out on Flathead. We know how to catch them on Fort Peck. Why can't we figure it out on Flathead? And there was a big learning curve there. I think I talked about last time. We may have came in a little cocky that first time, and our numbers were definitely low, but we're figuring it out finally. And we're making some pretty good paychecks and catching lots of really nice fish.
Yeah, it's funny how we all might think, well, a Laker's a Laker, but not necessarily. It depends a lot on that environment, what those fish are targeting and all that. And you're not alone there. And kind of vice versa. I've also talked to people who have fished for the Macks or Lakers there on Flathead Lake and went to Fort Peck and said, what the hell am I doing wrong? I can't seem to catch them there. So it depends. But we have a ton of people that listen that are regular Fort Peck fishermen. So maybe we ought to start there. What would you say are the main differences of fishing for lake trout in Flathead Lake as opposed to Fort Peck?
So I think the big difference is, they're a very predatory fish, and I feel like they eat everything, but the food source is so much different on Flathead than it is on Peck. Flathead, there's a lot of smaller fish like perch fry. Like we find that a lot of these lakers we catch, if we clean them, or sometimes you'll reel them in and they'll spit up a bunch of just really small perch fry. And so that's changed our tactic from Fort Peck, because Fort Peck, they're eating, big Cisco, 12, 14-inch Cisco. They're going after the big targets, where on Peck, we would use great big tubes, glow in the dark. And it seemed like the ones on Peck, they're a lot more scattered than the ones on Flathead. We'd spend a lot more time using our electronics on Peck, looking for small pods of fish and then dropping on them, catching one or two, and then moving on. And it felt like at Flathead, if you're in the right area, you can kind of just work the same loop back and forth and catch fish after fish after fish, fish after fish.
That might have something to do with the bait fish. On Flathead, they tend to concentrate as well. And the other thing is the bait fish for the Macks on Flathead will change. For example, when those whitefish come out, then almost every Mack you catch is full of whitefish. So
yeah, exactly.
It kind of depends, and you got to emulate those. And that's a whole nother podcast, because those whitefish will really confuse the hell out of you. They're the most dense biomass in that lake, yet they completely disappear for most of the time, except for a few times a year. Now, I've never understood.
They're a mystery, but if anyone wants to try it, they need to go out there in the summer and find those whites, because they are a blast. It's so good.
But anyway, so back to these big lake trout. Any other main differences that you see between the Lakers in Fort Peck and the Lakers in Flathead?
As far as where to find them, I think they're pretty similar. A lot of the Laker fishing we do on Peck is in the summertime, so that's why we're finding those Lakers in 100, 110, 120 feet. And we do the same thing late in the spring, early fall Mack days. We'll find them deep. And then as winter rolls around, or it starts to get colder, those fish really start to move up, whether it's for the spawn or just following that thermocline.
Mm-hmm.
But their behavior seems to be the same, but their food source is different, and that's what changes them.
So let's talk a bit about how you fish during Spring Mack Days for what they are affectionately called in Flathead, the Mackinaw or Macks, but they're a lake trout. Let's just start with pole. What kind of rods do you use and reels do you use?
So I really like to jig. I've always really enjoyed the more, I guess you'd call it, technical fishing. Right now, I'm typically using a 6-foot or a 6.6 medium fast. I've got a few different brands I like. I've really become a fan of Denali. They make a really good jigging rod. I have a couple of Loomises. Those are always good. And then I recently acquired a rod from a guy in White Sulphur that makes custom rods. And that's kind of been my go-to rod. Just really fast action, sensitive. You can work a snap jig really nice with it, and just has that solid backbone you need to stick those fish.
Seems to be kind of where a lot of people are going nowadays, is some of those custom rods. And it's not a bad idea if you want to make that investment, because they tend to get made by people that fish in a particular area that understand it. So you end up with a rod kind of tailor-made for what you're trying to do.
It's the same reason a mechanic spends all that money at Snap-on. That's the tools you're using, so why not buy the best, take good care of it, and it'll pay you back.
Exactly. Now, how about lures and that? What is your go-to for Spring Mack Days?
So I noticed last year that spring seemed a lot more of a jigging time of year. And so we we actually ended up using a lot of lures you can find there at Zimmer's Tackle in Pablo, just south of Polson,
Yep.
there on Flathead. They have these rattle disasters. They're
Yep.
anywhere from 3/4 of an ounce. They make really small ones, but we use 3/4 all the way up to ounce and a half. And they're any color works. They're really like blue and white. They glow in the dark. They got some flash on them. And then there's a buckshot in it. So it rattles when you're clanging it off the bottom. That's been a really successful bait. Another bait that I really like is just a jig and wrap or a snap jig. Some people refer them as snap jigs. Also a great bait. You can pop it really hard and it flies up and swims down sporadically. And those Lakers tend to like that, especially when they're being picky.
Mm-hmm. And again, folks, if you go to the podcast description, I'll have a link to Zimmer Tackle, and that'll give you a great place to go look. So rattle disaster, what else do you prefer when you're jigging there for Spring Mack Days?
So that's for some of the bigger fish that we're using those rattle disasters and the snap jigs. If we're targeting the smaller fish, they sell also the jigs that we like to use. They sell there at Zimmer's Tackle, and they're just like almost an oversized gumball jig. It's just a big round hunk of lead with a small hook on it, and they paint them in a glow paint. And those are usually 3/4, 1 ounce, ounce and a quarter. And that's just to get down when we're fishing 150, 200 feet, 250 feet. You want something heavy, but still small that can zip right down there and get in front of those fish and have some glow to it so they can see it. And then just some cut bait.
Do you tip those with any kind of bait at all?
Generally, no. There's enough action and noise going on with that bait. I have in the past. There's a few other scents I like that I buy online that you can coat your lures with that tend to.
What scent is it that you use most often?
I've got one that I don't even know where it came from, but it's just a small white bottle with a yellow label on it. And all it says is butt juice. And it works so good.
Now, are you going straight down to the bottom and then just bringing it up a little? Tell us a little bit as far as depth goes and that sort of thing.
So with the snap jigs and the rattle disasters, that's up to the angler. We spend the first couple weekends that we're there, it's a lot of time behind your graph, just trying to figure out what the fish are doing, finding what that sweet spot is, because every year's different. And like we talked about before, they're one of those fish that they're kind of picky about water temperature, especially this time of year. And there will always be a general zone where you'll find those bigger numbers of fish. And I think once you find that, you can kind of repeat that all the way around the lake. Look for the same kind of structure and then look for that same depth, and you're going to find those fish. But generally in the spring, I like to drop it all the way down, let it hit the bottom, beat it off the rocks, maybe throw some mud up, get some attention. And then once you start to see those fish come in, that's when you start working it off the bottom. And you'll see, even on a 2D graph, you'll see those fish start to peel off the bottom, and you can have them chase it almost dang near to the boat, and they'll finally hit it.
Yeah.
And their attention's the big part.
What kind of electronics are you using?
So for the longest time, all we ever used was just our traditional 2D. Obviously, we've started using the forward-facing sonar technology, Garmin LiveScope, and that's helpful to an extent. Once you start fishing these depths, 80 plus feet, it gets difficult to see not only the fish, but your lure as well. And I feel like there's a lot of time wasted messing around with that forward-facing sonar when you could just be catching fish.
Can you see any of those bait fish, any of those little perch and that on your graph, or are those just too small for the depth you're looking at?
There are times that we're able to see those bait fish, and I think that's been a big proponent to catching the smaller fish for us, is just fine-tuning that graph just enough that if the cloud of bait fish is big enough, you'll see there's something just a little different on the bottom there, and that just gives us an excuse to stop and give it a try. But a lot of times you're just hoping and praying that they're there. You've caught them there before. Hopefully they're there again. But you can't always rely on what you on your graph with how tight they can hold to the bottom.
Do you use what I affectionately call the monkey see, monkey do method, where you see a lot of other fishermen in an area and you go, well, something must be going on there?
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, especially at Mac days. And I
Hmm.
mean, it doesn't bother me. I think if you're out there giving it a try, come park wise, come fish. There's plenty of fish to go around. We're all doing it for the same reason. It's a conservation effort. We're not gonna, just because I catch 20 fish in one spot and you catch 50 in another spot, doesn't make me a better angler or you a better angler. Shooting for the same goal here. So if someone wants to come park close to us and even ask us questions, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what this tournament's about. It's how you approach it. You don't just
sure.
pull right up and park on someone's lap. Maybe talk to some people in the parking lot before you launch or one of those nights and get to know their boat and say, hey, I might come find you and maybe you can give me a rundown on what you're doing here. But we did that here and there at the beginning. We'd see these big groups and they're out there catching the little fish because they'd sit there all day long, and we'll go meander around them. And sometimes we don't even stop and fish. We just want to see what it looks like on the graph,
Sure.
just so we get an idea of what to look for. And then we go try to do it in different spots and find our own spots, because that's the joy of fishing right there, is kind of trying to solve a puzzle that's never truly solved.
Now, is there any parts of the lake that you find in Spring Mack days tend to be better than others that are your go-to parts, or is it just vary all over the place?
We really like the south side of the lake, um, on the reservation side of the lake. We've
Hmm.
always spent a lot of time down there. And I wouldn't say just because they're reliable spots. I think it's because while we're there, we're targeting multiple species and you can find all of them in that area. So if the Lakers aren't working out, well, let's go look for some smallmouth. Okay, well, we caught enough smallmouth. Let's go find some perch, or maybe let's go look for a big pike. It's not always, it should be the max show, but it often turns into, we're on a fishing trip. Let's be in an area where we can catch multiple species.
And do you fish with your dad a lot, or who you mainly fishing with these days?
Yeah, no, I really like fishing with my old man. He,
Hmm.
he loves to fish. That's all he does with his free time. And ever since I was a little guy, that's kind of what made us friends, in the boat together. And he's easy to fish with. He's quick to grab the net for a guy. And if the fishing's slow, he throws on a football game or leans back a seat and takes a nap, and I can kind of do whatever I want. And life's pretty good.
Now, Riker, what's the most you've ever made fishing Mac days, if you don't mind saying?
This fall Mac days, I think, was really close to my spring Mac days. And it was about $3,500 that I made. And then
Neat.
dad, he made about the same, $3,000. So, and then, the year as a whole, 2025, we definitely made the most money, a lot more than the year before that. We were just getting started, and we still made a few $100 that first year. This last year was really well. I think all in all, we probably took home over 10 grand between just the two of us. And that's not including all the people we brought. We brought several different friends and family members, and every single one of them caught enough fish to get in the money, or won weekend drawings, or won drawings at the end. I had one friend that came up twice, and I think he made almost $600 for just
Wow.
2 weekends of fishing.
Yeah. And I'm going to have Cindy on here later, and she'll talk about all the different ways you can make money, because there are a lot of different ways you can make money during Mac days. But what you've just stated there is just a great example of why this, to me, I think is one of the most special, unusual fishing tournaments out there, because you can have a lot of fun with your friends and family and all that, but still make really good money. I mean, 10 grand. That's
That's
more
a lot of
than you
upgrades
make
on the
any-
boat.
That'll put some gas in the boat, and
For sure. Yeah.
buy a couple cans of beer and all that.
Or two.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like fall Mac days better than spring, or vice versa, or does it matter to you?
It's tough to say. Spring is really fun because you catch a lot of fish, and I feel like it's easier to get your numbers up in the spring. But fall, and we were talking about this earlier, the big fish are out feeding, and I love catching big fish.
Yeah.
And so I won't put the numbers up like I do in the spring, but man, it makes for a good time. Lots of laughs in the boat and trying to wrangle those fish. And it's just cool. They're old fish. They're elusive. They're strong. And it's just a lot of fun. I'd love the fall.
Now, when you're out there, and I won't keep you much longer, but when you're out there, about how long are you out there for the day when you go out?
So we oftentimes just fish the weekends, the Friday, Saturday, and occasion the random Sunday. But we like to just fish all day. And like I said before, if maybe the bite's really hot in the morning and then it kind of slows down, we'll go look for another species of fish. We'll go see if we can't find a smallmouth, or go see if we can't find a pike. Or, I mean, that lake's full of all sorts of fish and different ways to catch them. So if the Lakers aren't working out, go try something new.
Where do you put in? Because again, your water levels are a little low this time of year. What's the best place to put in that makes it easy for this time of year?
Blue Bay's really good. That's where they host the event. It makes it really easy for when you're turning your fish in, because you can throw the boat on the trailer and pull right up to the cleaning station where they've got their facility, and they help you unload your cooler. They count your fish, you wash out your cooler, and then you're on your way.
Yeah.
But in the past, or at least one launch that we've really liked to use recently, is the Big Arm. Launch with Big Arm. I think it's just called Big Arm State Park.
Sure.
And it's a really nice launch. It always seems to be deep enough to launch from. And there's good open parking there. And it's close to a lot of places we like to fish. So
yeah, that's over on the west side of the lake. Gives you kind of a different perspective. And, you know, you're in a real popular spot for Max right out of Big Arm. So
yep. They like the Big Arm. There's fish all over around there. And I think with all the islands that are in and around Big Arm, it's easy to find the structure, at least like what we look for. It's easy to find that structure in that area. I think early during Spring Mack Days, a lot of those, at least bigger fish, everything's going to be up pretty shallow because of the cool water. So we're working, you know, from 10 feet all the way out to 60 feet. We catch a lot of those bigger fish. And then as it starts to heat up, you'll see as they'll drop off, and you'll look for those deeper points. So let's say 60, 80, 100, and then, you know, that warm summer weather rolls around, and then you'll find them off those deep edges in 100, 110, 120. So you just follow the fish. Takes a lot of searching, but you'll figure it out. Another thing, and I was going to mention this, I think everyone should have a really good net man and buy a really good fish paddle, because getting bites is the easy part. It's getting those Macks in the boat and then getting them neutralized before you throw them in the cooler. That's the tricky part. Yeah, they don't give up, and you got to be on top of it.
You got to knock them out good. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anything else that you would like to say, especially for folks that might be on the fence a little of, should I do this? Should I try it or not? What would you say to them?
Would say if you like to fish, then you're missing out. There's no reason why you shouldn't come out and at least give it a try. For most of us, Flathead's really not that far away. There's plenty of places to stay up there, and it's fun to learn a new lake. It's fun to see, and it's one of the most beautiful lakes in all of Montana, if you ask me.
Yeah, it is.
And so even if you don't catch fish, you're going to have a great time. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone, any boat ramp on Flathead, and I'll tell them anything they need to know. I'm not gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I know and learn from that.
Yeah. Riker's usually pretty good at sending me a few pics and stuff, and then I'll get them on MontanaOutdoor.com and share them, and we'll follow this young man and see how he does.
Well, I appreciate it, Dale.
All right, my man. Well, thank you so much. And if you think of any other points or anything like that, don't be shy. Let me know, and I'll share them on the website, because I really want people to take advantage of this, because like you say, this also benefits. It does some important things for the lake too.
Big time. And just, again, the culture that they've built there around this tournament is very special. They got some awesome people like Cynthia. She's the best. Even if you don't go fish, go to Blue Bank, go give her a hug. She's awesome.
There you go. All right, Riker Bear, one of the great competitors here at Mack Days. I sure appreciate it, buddy. And don't be shy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Tight lines.
Has this been a weird winter or what? One minute you're desperately needing to clear the driveway and work areas of snow, and then the next you're staring at all the stuff that needs to be done for spring, even though it's not supposed to be spring at all. Thank goodness there is Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. No matter if it is a traditional Montana winter with snow all over the place, or a winter that makes you think that maybe Mother Nature needs to get back on her meds. Stat. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has what you need to get the job done. Is snow piling up all over or looking like it's about to? They have the best snowplows in the world. Yeah, that's Boss snowplows. Those will remove snow fast, like, well, a boss. Or how about something that can help you at work hauling all the stuff away that the snow was conveniently hiding, or can haul your big boy and big girl toys on your next adventure in Montana's outdoors? Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has the best. Yeah, I'm talking about Diamond C trailers and all the incredible accessories that go with them. And remember, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has an amazing service department. Need your trailer rewired so the lights work the way they're supposed to? They got you. They'll have your truck and trailer doing what they're supposed to in no time. How about some cool accessories for your truck? Yeah, splash it up a bit. Oh, they've got those, my friend. And get this, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can even help with financing. Yeah, you heard me right. Financing. Go see Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula at 5680 Expressway. Or just go see them from anywhere online at rmtte.com. No matter how weird the weather is, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer will help you get everything done and looking like it's supposed to. So go see them at rmtte.com. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. All right, here we are with our next guest, Patrick Casey. Patrick, you were on the show, what was it, last year? Good to have you back on. Thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Albert. Things have been going good.
Good, good. So for folks that may not have seen the show last time, and that maybe you could talk first, just talk a bit about yourself, where you're from, and all that good stuff, just so folks know a little bit more about you.
Okay, I'm 46, almost 47, from East Helena. I live in Townsend. I started doing the Mack Days, done 3 full tournaments so far, so about a year and a half ago. And the second spring tournament, I've done 2 fall tournaments.
Oh, okay. So your second spring tournament, have you figured out yet whether you like Spring Mack Days or Fall Mack Days better, or do you like them both about the same?
I like them both the same, but I like spring more for one reason.
What's that?
Money. Make more money.
Yeah, go. Yeah, nothing wrong with money. Nobody will argue with you on this program. We all like to have a little extra jingle in our pocket. So let's talk, maybe we just start there. Let's talk about that. Why do you feel you make more money in the Spring Mack Days?
Because you catch more fish. As far as what I know, you catch more fish,
Right.
but I've only done 1 spring and 2 falls. But I definitely caught more fish in the spring, and it seemed like overall, most of the anglers did better in the spring.
Yeah, what's been keeping you coming back to Mack Days? Is it just all about making extra money, or are you having more fun? Tell us about that.
No, it's not about making money. I could make more money doing construction work, but
Yeah, sure.
it's just addictive. The whole camp, the whole scene, how well it's put on. It's just a really fun thing to do. It changes every day.
Yeah, that I've been saying that thing about this tournament for years. I see more smiles on anglers' faces at Mack Days than anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's even the days that are slow that are even more intriguing and keep you more interested, because it drives you a little more. And it's crazy how you can sit out there every day for 12 hours and it doesn't get boring.
Yeah. You don't find many anglers that come to it once. You mentioned money, so we might as well talk a little bit about that. This can be the richest tournament that anyone will ever fish in their life, for sure. How much money have you made fishing in these MAC tournaments with the 3 that you've done so far?
Yeah, I know exactly how much I've pulled in. So I know exactly how much, but so for 3 tournaments, I've gotten almost 35,000.
Oh, oh, that is incredible.
And before the caught probably 15, 20 lake trout in my life before the tournament I'd ever even done. And in Flathead, I'd never even caught a lake trout before.
Wow. Where had you caught lake trout before Flathead?
Swan here and there on Fort Peck after a long day there usually, but in like Flathead Lake once I learned how to catch them.
So let's talk about you figuring out how to catch lake trout on Flathead Lake. Take us through those stages of what you went through to figure it out.
Okay. So the first day that I went out there, I fished all day and I came back with 1 lake trout that I think I accidentally caught. And I'm looking at, the stuff that other people bring in, and I see where some guy had caught 50 fish that first day of the tournament. And I was just laughing, I'm like, that's impossible. Nobody caught 50. How did somebody catch 50 fish? And it's a fact. I mean, it's all there for the public to see, and they're not just making that up. Them fish are counted and it's legit. And it blew my mind. I was just like, I started doing the math on the days and how much time I had till the end. And I'm going, well, if I catch 1 every day, I'm going to have not even what he caught in 1 day. And it started from there. And, I had to think bigger, how to actually catch that many fish. So it was a process of elimination and getting my technique dialed and how I wanted to do it with the boat I have.
So for Spring Mack Days, then what did you find you had to change to make those numbers go up? Was it location? Take us through there of what were some of those changes you made that started to see more and more fish ending up in Patrick's boat?
So for me, it was a matter of getting on a good bite and learning what them fish, how they feel when they bite and where their depth and how I tied up my rigging and how I change it sometimes. It had a lot to do with catching a few fish so I could learn, so they could show me where they were and how they bit, how it feels when they bite.
What was that feeling that you look for now?
See, I kind of look at it as like everyone is getting bites. It's just some people that know they're getting bites and the other people don't really know they're getting bites. I think is getting bites, especially when they first drop it down, and especially if you're around other people that are bringing up fish. It's a matter of recognizing how to connect your hand to the bottom of the lake where the fish are through your pole.
And how do you do that? Is it just a real subtle vibration or something? Are you placing your fingers differently to get that feel? What's indicating to you that, okay, there's a fish on?
I use all my senses. I use my feeling, my sight, just kind of intuition and just general fishing knowledge. Obviously, if you have a big bunch of slack in your line and a big loop in your line and stuff like that, you're not going to catch fish. If your line is pulled way out by the currents, a lot of times it's going to be harder to notice a 12-inch little fish 250 feet or deeper down there nibbling on your little tiny bait. That's usually right. And a lot of times people are using a 7-foot medium heavy rod, which is actually too light for a 2-ounce jig. So it's a weird spacing for pulls and the design of pulls for what we're using.
So what size pull are you using?
I use medium heavy 7-foot, which is only good up to a 1/2 ounce bait, and I'm using ounce and a half, 2 ounce sometimes. So it's a compromise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's giving you a little more touch, but you're going to be dealing with a heavier weight. And I can see where that's a really good point you just made there. That's something folks probably wouldn't think of, making that kind of a combination.
Sure. And you could probably have a custom rod made, and some people do. And I'd like to know, if people do, maybe some of the guys that are a lot more advanced would share some of that stuff on a future podcast with you. So I'd like to know, what size poles people are using that are really successful.
Riker talked about a guy out of, I think he said White Sulphur Springs, that makes these custom rods. He said that's really been a bit of a game changer for him.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always these little things that just keep coming up. So you're jigging, a lot of people don't realize there's a decent current going on in Flathead Lake. How are you able to keep that line where you're more vertical and you've got that better connection, shall we say? What are you doing there? Is it having a little heavier weight to keep it where you've got a better control of it, or how did you make that change?
Yeah, now that's a kind of a fine line too, because more weight it's going against your pole and the feel of the jig. And that sometimes you just can't control. A lot of times if the jig is getting pulled away from the boat, that pole will catch more fish than the jig that's pulling toward the boat. So sometimes you need to compromise with that, but then you have the spot lock holding you with the wind, which isn't necessarily the direction of the current. So you need to work with both poles. And if you have multiple people on the boat, maybe one side of the boat's going to be a lot better because of that drift.
So are you holding on to both rods, or do you have one in the rod holder and one in your hand? Because you can use two rods, right?
Right. No, if you have both poles in your hand, you're not reeling in fish. So I hope one pole in my hand and I'm reeling it.
Constant.
Yeah. And if I get bored and I'm just goofing around and it's that slow, and I might put both poles in my hand, but then you're dropping a $600 setup as soon as you get a bite on one. And you can guarantee as soon as you put both of them in your hand, you're going to get a bite. So
Yeah. I've seen some people do it, and I don't know how they pull that off. But if I'm understanding this right, if the current's going to be pulling something, it's better to have it pulling that line away from the boat. So you want to make your adjustment there, or you're working the other rod. How deep are you going? Is it always to the bottom? What's your theory there?
my theory is always to the bottom. Might use like a spoon type of technique or a rattle disaster from Zimmer Tackle or something like that. And they might pull it up higher. But for me, it's better for me just to stay on the bottom.
Okay. And what kind of lure, what kind of jig are you using?
Okay, so I use a variety of different things, but mainly what I catch them on is the fly. The jig is more or less just a weight to get you down there. And the jig can be anything that's heavy enough to get to the depth that you're trying to fish and keep your line straight. I would say anywhere from an ounce to 3 ounces even, maybe.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
And then is the fly tied up above that then on the line?
Yes.
Is
Or
that what you've got there?
or below. And if they go to Zimmer Tackle, he has already tied up for you. All you do into them, and they are already tied up. They are rigged, and they are the best flies you can buy.
What are those called at Zimmer Tackle?
They're called Mack flies. They're his
Okay.
that he ties. His business ties up, and they have a glow on them. They're really super. They come in a single or double or triple hooks. I'm sure you'll leave Dick's Zimmer Tackle's link up. And
oh yeah. Is there a color for Spring Mack Days that tends to work better?
No, I don't think
Okay.
I mean, people, I'm not an expert on it or anything. And maybe somebody would say, oh yeah, there's definitely a color. But I think from what I've experienced, the color doesn't matter because it's pitch black down there. It's
Yeah.
it's more of a feel and recognizing that you're getting bites. What I say a lot of time is everyone's getting bites all the time. It's just some people recognize that they're getting bites and some people don't.
And are you tipping that fly with anything? Are you putting anything on it?
Absolutely.
What do you put on?
Any type of bait fish that we can buy at the store here in Montana, Zimmer Tackle has some of the best. Or if you just
Okay.
want to catch carp or any peamouth or any other bait that you can legally use, the west side of Montana is what we use out there.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I don't think any particular bait's better than another. Maybe it is. I think it's just recognizing the bite when you do get it.
And so for you, when you were figuring out what is that bite, what is that feel, were you just experimenting a little until you matched up the feel with the fact that you had a fish on?
Yes, absolutely. And understanding the amount of weight that it is on there. And it's hard to explain until you get out there and catch a few of them and you understand how much, because a lot of them are really small. So you could have them on and not really know you do.
You want to get them up, get them off, and keep going. About what's the average size of fish you usually like to catch to get in that sweet spot where you're just bringing them up and down?
Yeah. When you can get the same fish coming up every time, me personally, I try to go as shallow as I possibly can all the time. Your hookup's better.
Okay.
Your line pull hand connection to the bottom is better. The drift is better. And you have less that you have to reel the fish up. So anytime you can get in 140 feet of water and catch fish, even if you're catching slower rate than you would at 250, you might get more fish in the cooler. So that's something
Right.
to
Okay.
consider too. And that, if the shallower you can go, the better off you're going to be, especially at first, recognizing the bite and stuff like that.
Now, Riker was mentioning that early in the tournament, you can catch them pretty shallow. Is that the experience you've had as well?
Yeah. Last year, even at the last spring, even at the end of the tournament, the last day, I was pulling 90, even 80 feet of water and jigging, which is like most people don't jig at that depth. They get like 140s minimum usually people jig at. But last year during the spring, I was able to go super shallow and, like I said, around 100 feet and catch consistent fish jigging. So that makes a big difference when you only have to reel up 100 feet.
Yeah, you're cutting your time in half in essence, or better.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's just more fish in the boat. Any other subtle tips that you could give our viewers out there?
Yeah, I would say it's more of try different things, try different rigging, try different pulls too, and different setups. So a lot of people like to use a bait caster because it drops the line real nice and stuff, but I find for me that using my left hand to jig, my less dominant hand to jig, I'll have less hookups. Yeah, it drops down easier and the rods are heavier and stuff, but try different things. It might not work for you with a bait caster, or you might be better with a spin caster. You might be better with a medium light rod at first, opposed to going right to a medium heavy when you're first starting, so you can really load the pole up and notice the difference. And another thing is, when I tell a lot of people for the first time on my boat, is try a slow lift when you first start jigging for lake trout. That way the pole is already loaded up and you're not high sticking or high tipping, which means that your tip's already all the way in the air and you don't have any more hook set left.
Oh,
So
great
a lot of
idea.
times I'll tell people to start with the jig on the bottom, their tip all the way down at the water, and slowly lift the tip up and get a fish to follow it up like lake trout like to chase. And then when it's loaded, they can really maybe feel that bite as the pole is loaded when they're bringing it up, and they have a better chance of getting a hookup on it.
All right. What else would you recommend?
I recommend just, and positive attitude, and don't rate yourself to those guys that are catching 65 fish. Those guys, they've already put their time in, and don't compare yourself to the people that have been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Go out there. If you can learn from them, watch the podcasts on the Montana Outdoor Radio Show, listen to all the podcasts you've done with people that know what they're doing. There's no secret to it. It's Zimmer's going to go in there and tell you the same thing that he's going to tell the guys that are the best.
I think that's great advice too. How about as far as you had mentioned earlier about changing out when, let's say, you're working a particular jig or whatever, and nothing seems to be happening. How long do you keep trying before you change the spot you're in or change the setup that you're using?
Okay, so as far as changing the setup that I use, that's not very often. I stick with the same setup.
Okay.
Because I have faith in it. But the spot I will change. But when I mean change spot, that doesn't mean pull up the trolling motor. That can mean moving 10 feet. I guess if you're new and you don't really know, I would say getting a depth narrowed down, asking other anglers. And most people are going to tell you what depth they're catching. If you see a guy count 100 fish in at the thing and you go ask him, what depth were you fishing at mostly today? And he tells you 150 feet. He's telling you the truth. He's not trying to set you on a wild goose chase. He's telling you 150 feet. So maybe go try the depth that he's fishing at. That can be a start. And
what about,
go ahead.
For you, Patrick, what about electronics? Are you using any type of electronics that works better for you?
I use electronics. I have a Garmin fish finder and stuff, and that can be helpful, but I don't know that there's a fish finder that can see 12-inch fish 200 feet down there that are in the mud on the bottom of the lake. So a lot of times, if you just pull up to a spot and drop one pole down real quick, a lot of times, if you're going to get bites at a spot, it's immediately. So drop it down and see if you get a bite. Maybe just drop one pole down, see if you get a bite, to see if you even want to stay there or if you're at the right depth that you would like to try. So that's usually the best fish finder is dropping a jig down, I would say.
Okay.
But
yeah, I think in this tournament, it's all about the number of fish, because the more fish you catch, the more money you make.
Right. And sometimes it's kind of a sick joke the fish will play on us, is where you'll pull up to a spot and you'll catch a fish on the right pole and a fish on the left pole right away. And then you'll sit there for 20 more minutes and not get a bite. And that happens to everybody, and it happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But there's fish down there, so just give them time. Sometimes I'll sit in the same spot all day, and I'll have a flurry for 20 minutes, or I'll have a slow bite for an hour, or nothing, and then a flurry. So there's fish down there. Just it's a gut instinct. And how much do you want to run around? Maybe you're comfortable, just fire up the barbecue, relax, and wait for the fish. Or some people like to run around and chase them around. I think if you're on Flathead Lake, anywhere, and you got a pole in the water, you got a good chance of catching a lake trout.
Yeah. There's a lot of them down there, which is why they need to thin those numbers out for sure.
There is a lot of them.
That's a good point. Anything else that you can think of that might help some of these people? And let's do it this way. One, if people that are listening to this podcast that are on the fence thinking, I wonder if I had to give that a try, what would you say to them of why they should really try Spring Mack Days?
Well, because you catch a ton of fish and it's a blast. And I mean, little kids can catch fish. It doesn't matter. I brought my dad, he's almost 80 last year, and he ended up getting a check. And he ain't trying very hard. He's just kind of hanging out. I think anyone can catch fish there. This isn't the professional bass series in Florida, and this isn't a big secret, and it's not a big competition to beat so-and-so. So people are going to help you. People are going to be friendly to you. You're not going to be overwhelmed by it. It's pretty simple. I think anyone can do it. I think everyone should try it. You know, Double D is always out there to catch. I don't know what we're going to call it this year. We'll have to think about that. But that's the $10,000 tag fish. It's like winning the lottery, but people have caught that fish. So
what Patrick's talking about is they named the fish after me. So I feel like I'm a big shot nowadays. But that's the other thing. There are a lot of different fish out there. And Cindy's going to tell us all about those different amounts for the fish. But you can catch fish that are worth big money because they're tagged fish. And there's one of them out there swimming around that's worth 10 grand.
Right.
So do you put in at Blue Bay?
Is
that where you put your boat in?
Yep. I use Blue Bay because it's a really good ramp. And there'll be people there. If you're not very good at unloading and loading your boat, don't be afraid to ask somebody to help you. People want to help. Nobody wants to see somebody have an accident at the boat ramp. So everybody helps everybody. I mean, the first day it might be a little crowded and that first couple days, but guarantee you'd still find somebody that would help you if you really needed some help. So don't be afraid to ask.
Do you fish every day of the tournament or do you just do weekends?
I just do weekends, but this spring I'm going to do more than just weekends, probably 4 or 5 days a week.
It sounds like you're going to have a nice check then. You're dialing it in from the last time we talked. So that's great. You've given us such great advice, Patrick. I can't thank you enough. And that just helps this tournament keep growing and doing better and better. Anything else you want to share before we go?
Like I said, just stay with it. You know, like that first day that I went out there, I bring back one fish and it was pure luck that I caught that fish. But it wasn't 2 weeks later and I went out and I came back with 80 fish.
Wow.
So it changed. The first spring tournament I ever did last year, and I'm not a big time fisherman or nothing. I've only had a boat for a couple years, but I averaged 67 fish a day last spring.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I've never done a tournament anywhere besides Mack Days. Like I said, I'd only caught in a handful of lake trout, but another thing is in the rules, and I don't mean as far as the payout goes and stuff for Mack Days, but I mean recognizing what kind of fish you have is very important at Mack Days. The whole point of it is to know whether you have a bull trout or a lake trout. You need to know what type of fish that you have. Don't bring a bull trout up to the people that are trying to save bull trout.
Yeah, exactly. On the website, they have all kinds of ways to help you do that. In the podcast description, I'm going to have some links in there that'll help you learn how to recognize what you have. It's fairly obvious, but I'm glad you brought that up. That ought to be one of the first things you learn.
I just said, get out there and try it. Try it one time. Try it for the weekend. You can camp at Blue Bay. It's an awesome setup. They make it so easy, and they'll do whatever they can for you.
All right. Well, you've given us some fantastic advice. I can't wait to see how you do this year. Send me some pictures when you get a chance, and we'll keep people updated on MontanaOutdoor.com. And people can follow along and see how you do, Patrick.
For a minute. Well, thanks for having me, Downrigger. Until next time.
Thanks again, Patrick.
You bet.
I've got a question for you. When you walk into any room in your home, do your walls tell a story? Well, at Superior Hardwoods of Montana, they specialize in wall paneling that brings warmth, texture, and authenticity that can tell a story about what that room means to you. Your wall paneling from Superior Hardwoods can even tell a story about the history of where you live or share a special memory of where that wood came from. Yeah, in their own way, your walls will let it be known what is special to you. How is that possible? Well, Superior Hardwoods stocks a massive variety of styles, from reclaimed barnwood and weathered boards with real history to new precision milled paneling made by American craftsmen right there in their shop in Missoula, Montana. You really will get a special feeling every time you walk in the room. Yeah, you can go to the big box store and slap something on the walls, which I guess says something too, but you can have Superior Hardwoods find you something special to you and those you love. So become part of the Superior Hardwoods family of customers and be reminded every time you walk into the room that every piece of paneling supports local jobs and keeps American manufacturing strong. No, this isn't just about design. It's about reclaiming America, rescuing old barnwood, honoring its past, and giving it new life in your home, cabins, or businesses. Every piece of paneling shows off its quality, character, and craftsmanship that lasts. So whether you're building new or remodeling, let Superior Hardwoods guide you through the woods. You can visit them there in Missoula, Montana, in their showroom, or learn all about them from anywhere at superior-hardwoods.com. Yeah, right there online at superior-hardwoods.com. Superior Hardwoods of Montana, reclaiming America, one wall at a time. Go see them. All right, now you have heard from both contestants, and I hope you folks really found that as interesting as I did, seeing how both Riker and Patrick have really developed in a very short amount of time. I think that gives you all just a really great view of how quick someone can catch on to this. And the other thing that I loved about it was you can just see how much they've fallen in love with this event. And both of them mentioned this lady who just popped up on your screen now, Cindy Benson. And Cindy, I'll tell you what, Riker and Patrick sure think highly of you. You must be saying something right out there, huh?
Well, we try. I've got lots of good people that work out here. We've got staff that comes in, helps the guys, get their fish in here, get them counted. So we hope it works well for everyone.
Well, I wanted to get you on because you know everything about it. And I guess let's start with just a little history of Mack Days. When did it first get underway, Cindy?
That day started in 2002. We had our first event in the fall. We had a total of 888 lake trout that were turned in during that event. So it's pretty amazing that today we can get that many fish in one day. That was over, I believe it was like a 2 weekends. So it was a lot shorter than we have our events today, but yet, the amount of fish, we get that in one day now. So it was a good event. I remember it well. So since then, we have had a spring and fall event every year. So there's 2 events a year. When we first started, it was 4 weeks, and then it went to 6 weeks, and now it's 9 weeks long. So,
Wow.
yeah, we'll end right before Mother's Day this year. This spring, we'll end on Saturday. So that works out, so everybody can be home on Sunday with their wife or their moms.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
One of the things that both of them said was that they just love competing and being part of the Mack Days event. But one of the things they brought up, what this is all about, because it's more than just people out having fun and doing a little good-natured competing. There is a whole conservation effort behind it. Talk about that as far as the main underlying reason for this tournament.
Yeah, I sure will. The main reason for having Mack Days is to reduce the non-native lake trout in Flathead Lake and increase our native fish, which are very important. Right before we started out here this year, I've been working on some diaries that I had of anglers that used to fish Flathead Lake back in the 60s and 70s. Every day they went out, they wrote down what they caught, they wrote down what they used for lures. They had weights of the fish, every species they caught. I mean, they just wrote it all. And so I've got that now on the computer, and it's amazing to compare back then, what people are catching today out on Flathead Lake. And, back then they were catching bull trout and they were catching West Slope Cutthroat Trout. So today when you go out there, you're going to catch lake trout and you're going to catch some whitefish during the whitefish bite. But those native fish were important. They're important to the state of Montana. They're important to the tribes. They're important to all of us because native fish, the West Slope Cutthroat and the Bull Trout, used to be in a lot more areas than they all are today. The area where these fish were has dramatically declined over the years. And Flathead Lake is one of, the few places where they're still prevalent. They're still out there in a lot smaller numbers, but we want to see these fish go on into the future for future generations. People say, well, why don't you just go get some hatchery fish and put them out there? They're not the same. These fish in Flathead Lake will go upriver to spawn. They'll go clear up into Canada to spawn. Not all of them do, but some of them do. And, I one of the neatest things I've ever heard was a biologist talking. He worked for Montana FWP the day before he'd been up in Canada, and he had been where the river starts. And he said, like 300 yards from there was a pair of bull trout spawning. Well, those bull trout spawn there, they come back into the river system, or they come all the way back into Flathead Lake. And it's important to keep the genetics that those fish have in the lake and see them here for future years to come. I just hope that what we're doing here and what all of these Mack Days participants are putting into this is going to make a difference. We see a lot of people come out and compete that might not know for sure what's going on here, but like these two guys who got into this and are so good at it, they check it all out. They know what they're doing out here. And so we have classes that come in. We explain it to all these school kids. And I believe I believe people are understanding more and more all the time how important it is for these native species to be taken care of. If we don't take care of them, nobody's going to. And in 20 years, people are going to say, hey, what was going on? Why didn't somebody do something? I believe it's, our heritage, and we should all care about that, whether it's fish or other animals. I heard Barry say one day, if those fish were elephants and people could actually see what's happening, they would understand a lot more about what we're trying to do. And that's true. They're under the water. You don't see them. So people sometimes really, don't care. But we're trying to get more and more people aware of what is going on. And you can go onto our website, mackdays.com, and there's documents there and read about what they're doing and some of the research that's going on.
Yeah, you bring back so many special memories to me. My grandfather was a real integral part of my life growing up, and he's the one that taught me to fish. And he came to Polson, Montana back in late 50s, early 60s, when he retired from the Marine Corps. And we were fishing one day, and he caught one of these bull trout. And he was explaining to me, I'll never forget it. It's like yesterday. And he said, this fish is one of the most unique fish you'll ever see. These are not everywhere, but they are very unique and, in fact, sacred to a lot of people. And he explained to me why and all that and what this fish really meant. And fishing was just such a big part of his life. I mean, that was the whole reason he came back, is to, get back to his roots. And that, I will never forget that. And he treated those fish with such respect, and it was just so neat to see them, whether it be the cutthroat or the bull trout, and that we would catch in that. And so, yeah, it's tough, I mean, especially for folks like me and many others that had those memories to say, boy, it's pretty rare you see them. The good news is, from what I understand, Cindy, Mack Days is making a difference. From what I've heard, they are noticing that these fish are starting to grow in numbers now. Is that what you've heard?
We hope that's what's happening. The biologists want to have the data before they actually say what's going on. But we're seeing more and more anglers, or hearing more and more anglers saying, hey, I did catch a bull trout today, or I caught a West Slope Cutthroat Trout. In fact, my husband has caught some West Slope that are bigger than they were when he was a kid and they used to go out and catch them. One story that I always remember was I was taking care of a tribal elder over in Dayton before I started this job. And for some reason we were talking, maybe it was even after I told her I'm going to go to work for the tribe in fisheries. And she was telling me that when she could remember when she was a little girl, they would walk out from Dayton out towards Wild Horse. They would chop holes on the ice. They'd put fishing line that was wrapped around their hands. They'd undo it and put that down in the hole to catch fish. And she said they would catch fish that were so big they'd have to chop their holes bigger to get them up through the ice. Well, those had to have been bull trout back then, because there was no lake trout in the lake at that time. So, that story I always think about that when I talk about how important these fish are. People relied on these fish for a food source. Tribal people did, other people did, and it was very important. One day I was over at Wallstead State Park waiting for boats to come in when I was doing a krill survey. And this older tribal gentleman walked down to the shore, and I was bored, so I walk over there and start talking to him. And he was looking out across the bay. And he said, when I was young, you could look out across this bay in the evening and you would see flats, which is what they called the West Slope back then.
Yeah.
See them rising out of the water, feeding in the evenings. He said, all across the bay, you'd see that. Well, you very seldom see that anymore. There are West Slope out there. But, that was something that I always remember also, because it was almost like he had tears in his eyes talking about it. So to me, it's an important part of tribal heritage. It's an important part of us as being Montanans, to try to get these fish to for their populations to grow and be an important part of Flathead Lake.
So the idea here is we've got to thin those numbers of the lake trout, or Macks, or Mackinaw, as some people call them, so that these fish we were just talking about, so the bulls and the flats can have their shot at making that comeback. And what I love about this event, this tournament, if you will, is that you're utilizing sportsmen to be part of that conservation effort. So talk a bit about that as far as how folks get involved in the tournament, how they enter, and all that, because this is where I think people will find this is a very unique tournament. It's not like a lot of fishing tournaments where it's a 2-day thing and you sign up and that. It's a whole different deal. So talk a bit about how the average folks out there that want to take part in this, how they get involved and when they can do it.
Okay. And the reason that the anglers are so involved in this is because when they were coming up with a plan on what they were going to do in Flathead Lake, the anglers that were out and about fishing at that time were saying, we want to be part of this. And we told them that. We said, the anglers want to be part of whatever you do to reduce these lake trout and to increase our native fish. So they worked that into the plan. The biologists that were working on it did that. And I think it's so important that anglers then participate and continue to participate in this event. And we've tried to make it as easy as we can for them to get involved. You can go to our website, www.mackdays.com. There's an entry page there. You can email us, you can telephone us, you can go out and fish during the event, bring your fish in, and then enter. So, we've tried to make it as easy as possible. There's no entry fee. You don't have to pay. You can bring the whole family. There's different categories for everybody. If you want to try to be in the top 20 anglers, you can do that. If you just want to go out and recreational fish, 1 or 2 days, you can do that. As your total goes up, once you hit 11 fish, as your total goes up, there's bonus dollars that you get paid at the end of this event for the different categories. The categories go up by every 25 fish. That bonus chart is on the website. So that's an incentive to go out there. Kids get that also. We have categories for the kids. We have tagged fish out there that have values from $10,000 down to $100. So that's another way, to win. And it's pretty exciting for an angler that goes out there and fishes all day to come in at the end of the day and have a tagged fish and win at least $100 off that tagged fish if there's a tag in it. And then, those values go on up. We've had the $10,000 fish caught. I believe it was 3 different times now. The $10,000 fish has been caught, so there's lots of ways to win.
I think you spend a little time on the website. You're going to kind of find your niche and then get to know the other fishermen a bit, and it'll start to happen. But have you noticed that it's a lot like that for other fishermen other than just Riker and Patrick, as far as they kind of get the bug with this tournament and they keep coming back, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. People, get into it and they love it. There's a lot of great friendships made out here. These guys are competitive, but they've got each other's back. And they'll help people out. If you just go up and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? Most of these guys are really good about helping other people. And, you don't have to catch a lot of fish to win. I should have mentioned we have lottery drawings. And,
that's right, yeah.
Fish, that gets you entered in our lottery drawings. And those start at $2,000 and go down. So you don't have to catch a lot of fish. So you do get a chance with every fish that you turn in.
Yeah. I just love all these different ways. In fact, I'll give you one more. I know you're busy. I won't keep you long, but one more. When I asked Patrick, I said, why do you keep coming back? And he said, oh, it's real simple. I'm addicted.
Yeah.
He said, right. I'm addicted to this. I love it. So that's the kind of, and that's a good addiction. They're finding something, and like Riker and his family, they make it a family affair. They bring out friends. He said even friends that only fished with us 1 or 2 times took home a little money, but they learned something and they had a lot of fun.
Yes.
So that's what I love about it. You can even enter the last day of the tournament.
That's right. We have special prizes on the last day. So you even have a better chance of winning on the last day.
Yeah. Now, what do you do with the fish that everybody catches? Because, these are a lot of fish that are coming in, because you can catch up to 100 fish a day. What do you guys do with all those?
So if anglers want to donate their fish, they can donate them. And we take them and we'll process them in our facility here. We do sell frozen fish fillets to a couple different distributors. It's under the nonprofit corporation formed through the tribal council, where all of the money comes back into our fisheries program to help pay for this, because it is expensive. It costs a lot of money to do this. And so all that money comes back. We sell, all the way from Yellowstone up to Glacier Park, I guess. in the areas through here. There's a few grocery stores that carry the product, but most of it goes to restaurants and gets used that way. We give fish to a bird sanctuary where they are rehabbing eagles and, all the raptors. We also have a zoo that buys a few of the fish from us. We compost what we don't use for processing or giving to the sanctuary or the zoo. That goes to a composter. So that's where all of the fish go.
Well, you're using every last bit, and that's
Sure try.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Lastly, is there any advice that you can give folks that are thinking about, well, I think I might give this a try? Are there any things they should think about bringing or knowing to make this their first try for Spring Mack Days?
The most important thing I believe that people need to do is be weather wise. Find a good weather app to use. The weather changes fast out here, especially in the spring. You need to always know what the weather predictions are. So know that, have good safety equipment on your boat, wear life preservers. They don't do you any good if they're not on. So I always encourage people to wear them. And then talk to vendors in the area that sell fishing tackle. They can give you good advice. Our website has fishing tips. It also has some videos where you can actually see the guys talking and showing what they use out there. Look at those. Just try to find people that have fished out here before or that are out here, and just quietly go up and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions, or just sit and watch. We do ask people to keep back from the boats where the anglers are casting out and then reeling back in. You don't want to get tangled up in somebody's line. So we ask people to be careful about that. We ask trollers and jiggers to watch each other and stay out of each other's way. I think another important thing for people to know too is if it's busy at a boat ramp, get your boat ready before you drive up and back down. Have everything ready so that when you get down by the water, you can launch your boat, get back in your vehicle, and get out of the way. We've seen people come that are newbies that, they back down and they start getting stuff out of their vehicle and loading it into the boat and all of that. It takes a long time. People get a little bit cranky about that. So you just have to learn these things as you go. But I would watch the videos on our website because I think you're going to learn the most there.
Yeah. If you go to the podcast description, folks, I've got the links there. So it's real easy. In fact, you're going to recognize some of the folks who have been on our Mack Days podcast over the years that will give some great advice. Mack Days got underway today. The 12th is when we recorded this. So you're off and running. And I hope folks will jump in there and get going because this will be fun. And the other thing is, if you listen to the Montana Outdoor Radio Show, Cindy will be on each week and she's going to give us updates too.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate all of the information that you give out to the anglers and to the public about what's going on out here.
One of my favorite events around to get involved. It's my pleasure. Now, big question and last question, the $10,000 fish. Last year was named, I thought, a wonderful name, Double D, as in Downrigger Dale. Have you decided what this $10,000 fish's name's going to be that's swimming around out there that might just make someone 10 grand?
We haven't come up with a name yet, but the guys just came in for lunch, so maybe we'll sit here and talk about it now. I'll let you know what we decide.
All right. Maybe like a Downrigger's best buddy or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck out there. Good luck to you and your staff, Cindy, and thanks for everything that you all do to make this such a wonderful event.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. That gives you a great overview of what this great tournament is about. It's an event, and there's so many reasons to be part of it. Of course, you've got my email down there in the podcast description. Just jump in there. I will gather whatever information you need. We'll have Cindy's contact information. We're going to have the website, on and on and on. So make sure you get involved in this and get out and have some fun. Be safe out there. And of course, always be good to each other. And we'll see you next time on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for watching the Montana Outdoor Podcast. You know, there's no way we could do this podcast without the incredible support of sponsors like Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock, high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss snowplows and accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go see them on the web at rmtte.com. We'd love to hear what you thought of this week's podcast. When you get a minute or two, shoot us an email and tell us your thoughts. Same goes if you have any questions for Rigger or this week's guest. Just send your questions or comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. Hey, don't forget we should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, gang, we hope to see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.